Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker and Dave Ross. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. If you have questions about your retirement, you want to find out more about the Retirement Team Action Plan, have that developed for you. That's the number to reach out, 419-794-3030, the website arhq.com. Guys, I don't think it is a secret that women typically live longer than us. In fact, research shows that nearly 80% of all women will become the sole financial decision maker for their household at some point. And that includes planning for their own retirements as well. So I have to wonder, do you guys take the time to make sure both spouses are on the same page when you meet with them so that neither one of them feels lost?
I think it's imperative that you do that. And I will tell you, I'm one of these people that I know that my wife's going to outlive me by a lot because I married a much younger woman. And the other thing I would tell you about my wife is she had a grandmother that lived to be 112 years old.
Wow.
So longevity risk is a real issue in my side of the family because the females on my wife's side, they live to be they're well into their 90s, all of her aunts and her mother. So absolutely, this is very important. And I will say this, my wife makes all of the decisions about the day-to-day decisions, so it's very important that she be up to speed on what's going to happen if something happens to me so that her retirement can go well. She could retire here in a couple of years from teaching. And I would say that you want to have a good pulse on both husband and wife as far as where they sit financially and how they view their retirement life and how they think they want it to go. And so it also helps in crafting a strategy because if the wife likes to shop and spend and the husband likes to play golf like I do, that could create issues. So you've got to be on the same page with both spouses and really lay out a plan that incorporates both of their mindsets in terms of how they're going to spend their money in retirement time.
Yeah, completely agree with Dave. I mean, when we put together the Retirement Team Action Plan, it is absolutely taken into consideration, making sure that both spouses are on the same page. It doesn't mean that they have to agree with absolutely everything, but when we look at it, what we're going to do going through the Retirement Team Action Plan is look at 10 areas where we kind of get everybody working on the same side of the table together to end up accomplishing the same goal. So, number one is we're going to start out that meeting by having that open conversation about the goals. I oftentimes will find that spouses have a lot of the same similar goals. They want to move into retirement time and know that they're confident that they have enough money that's going to last the rest of their lifetime. They want to, travel and spend time with kids and grandkids. Those are, common goals. But if there's a difference there, that open conversation about, what's important to them, what are the biggest goals that they want to try to accomplish over the next year, is having that conversation during that initial meeting that we have. Number two is understanding that there are going to be differences. A perfect example of that is it's extremely common between one spouse and the other spouse to have a different level of comfort when it comes to investing and risk. Mm-hmm. You might have a husband who's more, comfortable with taking higher risk, and you might have a spouse or a wife who wants to be more protective and conservative. Having those differences, would be something that would be common, and that's okay to have some of those differences because number three in that Retirement Team Action Plan, what we do is we run this portfolio analysis. And that's going to show them exactly what the level of risk that they're taking in terms of 0 to 100. So the husband might be at a risk score of 80 and the wife might be at a risk score of 50. Maybe 80 was a little bit too high for him. Maybe he's ready now that he's moving into retirement time to try to get it down to like a 65, and maybe she wants to be closer to a 35. And then when you blend that all together and you look at the total investment policy statement that's created for that family, maybe it averages out at that 50 to 55 level. You've got some conservative investments in there. You've got some that are a little bit more growth oriented. Even as the advisors, it helps us figure out where we're going to position those, how to create that portfolio optimization. Number four, that then leads us into creating that financial plan and developing a written retirement income plan. And by doing that, then number five, what it allows us to do is to stress test the plan to figure out what could happen in different scenarios. In this example, they're talking about the husband passing away first, and that's the common thing that happens, but it doesn't always happen that way. Things can happen another way. And so in stress testing the plan, what we can do is we can look at the scenario that says, well, what could happen if there is a premature death? How is that going to impact the surviving spouse? Because there's normally going to be like a loss of one of the Social Security sources. If one of the two of them gets a pension, it could have an impact on the pension. Whether they have life insurance needs or not could have that impact. In stress testing the plan, we could look at things like, well, what happens if the market crashes right after you retire? Or what happens if Social Security says they're going to do what they're going to do, which is reduce benefits in the future? And then when you know these different scenarios, what it allows you to do is start making decisions on how can you reduce and or eliminate those things that significantly reduce the risk of outliving your income. Number 6 is, planning for health and long-term care needs. We had a couple that we met with the other day. He's getting ready to retire. John's going to be 65, retiring from the refinery. His wife was a teacher for about 10 years, gets a little bit of a pension there, but she's got from age 62 to 65, she's got to help navigate the Affordable Health Care Act and figure out, where that plays into. So her decisions and her opinion has a big impact. Plus, her life's experiences in long-term care have an impact as far as, what decisions go into help protecting those assets to outlive the income and protect it from a nursing home spin down. With number 7, we're going to look at coordinating retirement timing. Decisions like, when to take Social Security, navigating those healthcare costs. Many retirees will just take Social Security right away when they retire. That isn't always in the best strategy. Again, using the example of John and Mary who came in, because of the fact that she has a state teacher's retirement, and her initial thought was she gets half of the money of her Social Security, that may not necessarily be true because of that windfall elimination provision. And Social Security optimization is going to be important to help them determine what might be the best approach on when to draw benefits. Number 8 is going back to some things that I had talked about in a previous segment, which is also preparing for the unexpected. Preparing for the one day the phone call from the kids come in that says, Mom, Dad, I lost my job. And unfortunately, if I don't get some money, I'm going to, have my mortgage or my house at risk. And, I need a little bit of a bailout. And whether you want to do that or not, that's, a parent's decision. Dealing with things like the market crashes, they're going to happen. And do you have a plan in place to prepare for the unexpected? Home projects. I mean, if you have a major repair that needs to be done in the house, having a plan in place ahead of the time. And that's why I agree, Dave, of working with a professional is number 9. A professional can be there. I oftentimes do a lot of counseling in the meeting. I can share my 30 years of experience of working with people and helping them navigate that. And then the 10th and final thing is, monitoring the plan in the future. I think just like a dentist, it's good to come in for 6-month checkups. I would say that not all spouses are required to come to every meeting. So when we're talking, alphas and betas and standard deviation, the one that, the spouse just falls asleep at, I get that. But knowing the plan is so important. So if you're a spouse, let me tell you, if you don't feel like you know what the plan is, you need to get a hold of us. Let us put together the retirement team action plan and help both of you get on the same page for your retirement.
I've spoken before, kind of in jest, but there's a little bit of a truth to it, that there is a degree of marriage counseling that goes on in the offices at America's Retirement Headquarters because it is important. The plans for retirement may differ a little bit. As Dave pointed out, maybe it is, one wants to spend more, wants to play golf more or travel more. Finding at least some common ground, not going to resolve bigger issues than that, but making sure, that the plans work together if they are going to be a little bit separate. And then also that both parties understand the plan, because if there is, the eventual loss of a spouse, there isn't that confusion to go on top of the emotional side that goes along with the loss of a loved one. So it is something, when you set up a time to speak with them, both husband and wife, both partners come if you are able to. But at least, in future meetings, definitely make sure that both are there to understand what goes in the process, what goes into that retirement team action plan. It all begins with that phone call 419-794-3030, or you can set up a time and reach out to the team there at arhq.com.